Chapter 13. The years of 1973. I was 15 years old in 1973, an age between two worlds, the soft innocence of childhood and the restless anticipation of becoming a young woman. That year, my mother decided to take me on a journey, not to a faraway place, but to a land that carried her earliest memories, the village of Bến Lức, where she had been born and raised. It was to be more than a trip. It was the step back into her own childhood, and for me, revelation of the bloodline and soil from which part of me was made. The road from Saigon to Bến Lức. The journey began in Saigon, where the city pulsed with noise and confusion, especially in those uncertain years of war. Buses crowded with people, bicycles weaving in and out, soldiers stationed at corners, and sounds of motorbikes buzzing like restless bees. It was the rhythm of daily life, yet beyond the restless city lay the delta land, where rice paddies stretch endlessly, where the Mekong's branches carry both life and mystery, and where time seemed to move more slowly. Bến Lức lies only about 30 kilometers southwest of Saigon, in Long An province, a gateway between the bustling urban capital and the vast, fertile Mekong Delta. The route was not long by today's measure, but in 1973 it felt like a real passage from one world to another. The highway quốc lộ 1 carried us through the flat lowlands, past villages shaded by coconut palms and banana groves, with the occasional roadside stalls selling sugarcane juice or bánh tét wrapped in banana leaves. We rode in a bus that shook and rattled along the uneven road. I sat beside my mother, watching her expression. She was unusually quiet, her gaze set on the horizon, as though she could already see the rice fields of her childhood waiting for her. For me, the trip felt like stepping into the secret chapter of her life, one I had only heard in fragments through stories told at night. As we left behind the crowded neighborhoods of Chợ Lớn, the air shifted, the concrete faded into open skies, and the city sounds gave way to rhythm of countryside life, a crowing of roosters, the splash of buffalo in muddy ponds, and the laughter of children running barefoot on dirt paths. Waterways crisscross the land, carry boats laden with fruits and firewood. The smell of earth after rain, thick and damp, filled the bus as it wound its way closer to Bến Lức. First glimpse of my mother's homeland. When the bus finally reached the Bến Lức district, I felt the difference immediately. The land was wide open, as if the sky itself had grown larger. Coconut trees leaned gracefully over narrow canals, their leaves shimmering in the afternoon light. The rice paddies stretched like endless green carpets, broken only by the dark outlines of farmers in conical hats. Their bodies bent low in rhythm with the land. The road from the bus stop to my mother's ancestral home was muddy, slippery, and narrow, We had to walk carefully, balancing each step. I clung to my mother's arm, afraid of slipping into the wet field, yet she walked with such confidence, as though her feet still remember every turn of the path, every bend of the road. This was the soil that had shaped her first steps as a child, and now, decades later, it welcomed her back. As she walked, the farmers working in the fields noticed us. Their hands paused mid-motion, their eyes lifted from the rice plants, and they stared curiously. It was not rude, but rather a natural curiosity of country folk, wondering who had returned along that familiar road. Some of them recognized my mother. A few older women raised their hands in greeting, their voices carried across the field. Trời đất, có phải con gái của bà Sáu không? Về thăm hả? It means, my goodness, is that a daughter of bà Sáu coming home? My mother smiled, her face glowing in the way I rarely saw in the city. She nodded, calling back to them, her voice carrying warmth and recognition. It was as if years had fallen away and she was once again the young girl who used to walk barefoot across those muddy, the ancestral home. At last, we arrived at the house of my maternal ancestors. It stood simple, with walls weathered by time, its roof darkened by age. Coconut palms swayed gently around it, casting a long shadows on the yard. As soon as we stepped inside the front gate, relatives came rushing out. They embraced my mother with tears and laughter, voices overlapping in the excitement of reunion. They touched her shoulders, her hands, her face, marveling at how she had changed, how she had grown into a woman she now was. And then their eyes turned to me. It must be your daughter, they say, reaching out to touch my hair, my face, as if they were searching for traces of my mother's childhood within me. I stood shyly beside her, both overwhelmed and comforted by their warmth. Inside the house, the scents of betel-nut and tea filled the air. On the altar, incense sticks burned slowly in front of ancestral photographs. The faces in those faded black and white pictures seemed to look directly at me, as though silently welcoming me into their story. Walking through my mother's past, that evening, my mother took me outside. The sun was setting behind the rice fields, casting the golden glow across the water. She pointed to the path we had walked, canal where she once bathed as a child, the trees she used to climb. Her voice softened as she spoke, filled with both longing and pride. Con thấy không? She said. This is where I ran as a little girl. Every corner here holds my memories. We didn't have much, but our lives were simple and peaceful. The land gave us rice, the river gave us fish, and the coconut trees gave us shade. It was a hard life, but it was home. I listened, trying to imagine her as a barefoot child running across the fields, her laughter echoing through the air. I felt almost impossible to reconcile that image with a mother I knew, the strong woman who managed a household in wartime, who carried worries deep in her eyes, yet in that moment, seeing her smile so freely, I realized that beneath her strength lay a girl who once belonged to this land and perhaps still did. A night in the countryside. That night we stayed with the relatives. Dinner was simple but abundant. Rice, fish from the canal, pickled vegetables, and fresh coconut water. We ate together on the floor, the oil lamp casting a warm glow of our faces. Laughter filled the room as stories were exchanged, memories recalled, and news from Saigon shared. Outside, the night was filled with chorus of crickets, frogs, and occasionally bark of dog. The air was thick with the scents of wet earth and blooming night flowers. I lay on the mat beside my mother, listening to her breathing as she slept, and thought about the difference between the city and this countryside. In Saigon, the nights were never fully dark, always interrupted by the sounds of traffic or distant gunfire, but here the darkness was pure, deep, and filled with the kind of peace I had never known. Reflections on 15-year-old. At 15, I stood between two worlds, the modern city shaped by war and change, and this countryside shaped by tradition and memory. In Bến Lức, I felt both like a visitor and like someone returning home. The faces of relatives who welcomed me, the muddy paths, the rice fields stretching endlessly, all of it seemed to whisper that this too was part of me, even if I had not lived it myself. I realized that my mother had carried this place within her all her life. No matter where she went, no matter what struggles she faced, a part of her heart had remained here, rooted in the soil of Bến Lức, and now, by bringing me here, she was passing the root to me, reminding me that I too belong to this lineage, this earth, this history. The journey back. When it was time to return to Saigon, the relatives gathered to see us off. They packed food for us to take: bananas, rice cakes, dry fish, and though sending us away with a piece of a countryside to carry back to the city, my mother embraced them tightly, her eyes shimmering with emotion. The walk back along the muddy path felt different this time. The fields no longer seemed distant or unfamiliar. The farmers nodded at us knowingly, as though I, too, had been marked by this land. On the bus ride back to Saigon, I leaned my head against the window, watching the scenery pass by in the reverse. The coconut palms, the canals, the rice fields, all faded slowly into the distance, replaced by the rising buildings and noisy streets of the city. Yet something inside me had changed. I carry with me not just the memory of the trip, but the sense of belonging to two worlds, the city where I live and the countryside where my mother had been raised. 1973 was a year of turmoil in Vietnam. The war had not yet ended, though peace was being spoken of. Life in Saigon carried tension, uncertainty, and fear. Yet for me, that year was also a year I discovered my mother's roots, the soil that nourished her spirit and through her nourished mine. Bến Lức was not just a place on a map between Saigon and Mekong Delta. It was a bridge between generations, between past and the future, between the life of my mother once live and the life she had given me. Walking that muddy road beside her, hearing the voices of relatives calling out, and seeing her eyes light up with memories, I understood, perhaps for the first time, the power of belonging, the quiet strength of knowing where one comes from. And so at 15, I stepped into my mother's childhood world and carry part of it back with me. That journey became more than just a memory. It became a root hidden but alive, shaping a woman I would one day become. The end of chapter 13, to be continued.
Tell me all about this name, and it's difficult to say. It was given me the day I was born. Want to know about the stories of the empire world? My eyes say more of me than what you dare to say.